In today's busy world, adding another thing to our to-do list is the last thing we want to do. In this next talk, Dr. Kathy Glyshaw makes an interesting connection between time, stress, and flexibility, offering new possibilities that lead to individual and collective resilience.
So, how many of you out there have a to-do list? Show of hands. And now, how many of you want to add to that to-do list? I figured probably not that many. No. But what I've discovered is that actually adding to your to-do list can lighten your load. The trick is, you just need to know what to add. And I'm hoping that my sharing of this story will help you learn just what you might want to add to your to-do list. I teach psychology here at UMBC. I teach an undergraduate course that focuses on helping students learn how to interview others. The word interview comes from the French word to see, or to see one another. And as a clinical psychologist, I just really like that fact. For to see someone seems to really get at the heart of what interviewing is all about. And to truly see someone, now that's a difficult thing, and often a difficult concept to get across to students. The origin of the word gave me an idea of how I might help my students understand this. I created a visual exercise that I'd actually like to do with you. I have a picture that I plan to show you, but first I want you to try and visualize it, okay? So if you're comfortable, please close your eyes and try to form a mental image of this picture as I talk to you about it. It's a picture that I took while in Northern Ireland of what is known as the Mussenden Temple. I was standing inside some nearby castle ruins when I took the picture. The temple is the focal point. It has a domed roof and some columns. And it appears to be made of like a light-colored concrete or stone. The castle ruins themselves are visible in the picture. And there is a path that runs from the temple to the ruins through a grassy stretch. And taken at dusk, there's some pink and yellow clouds amidst the mostly gray-blue sky. Now I'm going to have you open your eyes, for typically by the time I've shared this much information, my students think they've got a complete grasp of it. So I have them draw it in their groups. And it's at this point that they realize, oh, our images don't quite match up with each other, okay? And they argue about how to draw it and what it looks like. And then, when they're finished, I have them share the pictures with the entire class. Interesting, huh? And then, I share the picture. Are you ready? Okay. Now, I don't know how well you did visualizing this, but most of my students admit they were a little bit off. Okay? They realized that they assumed a number of things about the picture. And we do this in life, don't we? We think we have total grasp of a person or a system, but really, we've just filled in the details with our own assumptions. Even though we're aware of the problems of assumptive thinking, we do it, even as educators. In fact, the educational system itself, it even reinforces assumptions about students and what's best for them. Take the artificial deadline, what I like to call the pumpkin rule. Assignments are due at midnight and not a moment later. Yes. The assumption is that educators must set firm deadlines for all in order to be fair. And good students would surely get in their assignments on time. And then those others, well, they just must be unmotivated. Students who partied or procrastinated or were just plain lazy. The clock strikes, the paper must be turned in, no excuses. But what if there are? What if there are legitimate reasons for that paper not to be turned in? You see, I came to teaching from having spent 20 years in college mental health, and I knew that there were many reasons for papers not to get in on time. The death of a parent, a sexual assault, suicide of a friend, an unwanted pregnancy, mental illness. The list goes on and on. But when I first started teaching at UMBC, I was warned that as a clinician, I might have a tendency to be a little soft on my students. Yeah. And I knew I was stepping from one world where I'd been trained to be flexible and to see students as experts on themselves into another world with strict standards, uniformity, treating all students the same way. Consistency across courses, consistency across students, and I felt constricted. Professors often hold that they don't have time to deal or address the individual student. I've got 100 students in my class. How am I supposed to learn all their names? If I grant one exception, then I'm going to have to grant it for all students, and I don't have time to be continually doing that. Most of the time, we don't stop to think just how much time is lost by failing to see the whole picture. I know I didn't. I tried to ignore my clinical instincts, and I set firm, rigid deadlines. And I was met with a bunch of really anxious students, okay? The deadlines and the rigidity, it just set up this negative dynamic. And students were constantly questioning me, constantly emailing me. They worried about everything. And they became just as nitpicky and inflexible with me. My to-do list ballooned as I strove to double-check everything, for every little word could be questioned, every little mistake magnified. They were just constantly pecking at me and wearing me and my enthusiasm for teaching down. And I realized I did not have time to be this rigid and limit-setting. It wasn't helping me teach better, and it wasn't helping them learn more. With help from the Faculty Development Center, I learned to trust my instincts a little more. And I added to my to-do list things that connected me more with my students, learning their names, emailing them about questions that they'd had, seeing them as adults who could educate me on what works best for them, allowing them the flexibility to choose their own deadlines. And all of this has helped me to see the fuller picture and helped me to help them achieve more success. But now, before you try to stop me and say, okay, this is great, but I don't have time to be learning names, making these connections, challenging norms about deadlines, realize this: these changes, they lighten my load. For when we connect and we offer choice, we become motivators to our students. We change the dynamic from being powered-centered and limit-setting to being powered-sharing and flexible. Yeah, it took time for me to gather all the pieces of their story, but it took more time to deal with their unhappiness. For when we are, I'm sorry, when we are, I knew that was going to happen. When we misunderstand others, sorry about that. when we misunderstand others, that slide went too fast. We are left to deal with their frustration. And when we are rigid, we end up having to deal with all their anxiety. Taking the time to have a clearer picture, it's worth it. Not only does it allow for more positive energy, less stress, more manageable to-do lists, it leads to us being our better selves. For we are better when we connect, when we truly see each other. We are better when we create an environment where all feel valued and learn to value others in return. So I ask you, what can you add to your to-do list that will help you to see the full picture? Thank you.